I'm Alex, and this is Woke Fallout, the podcast where nothing's too sacred to question and nobody's too big to call out. I dig into the past, drag the present into the light, and drop the kind of takes that get people talking. Welcome to the Fallout. In this episode, we're going to discuss Chat Control 2.0, what it is and why it's bad. Alright, let's cut to the chase. We're staring down the barrel of a proposed EU law, so dystopian it makes Big Brother look quaint. It's called Chat Control 2.0, and if it passes, your private messages, encrypted or not, will be read by the state before they even leave your phone. Here's how it works. The EU wants to force your device to scan everything you send, texts, photos, videos, before encryption kicks in. This is known as client-side scanning, basically putting a government agent between you and your messages. The rationale? They claim it's about stopping child sexual abuse material, CSAM for short. But we all know how protection always turns into control. The brains behind this nightmare is the European Commission, pushed by the Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson, and championed by Denmark during its current EU Council presidency. First floated in 2022, this proposal has been recycled until it's ready for prime time, scheduled for a final vote on October 14th, 2025. Before that, EU governments finalized their positions by September 12th. Now, here's where we're at. According to fightchatcontrol.eu, 15 EU countries now support the law, 6 are undecided and only 6 oppose it. These numbers might have changed by the time this is published. That 15 out of 27 is exactly the minimum needed on the country count. But remember, for the law to pass, those nations also need to represent at least 65% of the EU's population. Germany's vote will likely tip the scales here. So, what happens if this passes? Everything you upload or send will be scanned. Your digital life, from memes to private apologies, all gets dragged down through AI scanners. Encryption becomes useless. Your thoughts, once locked down, now get peeked at. Government surveillance turns real time. And once that infrastructure is deployed, it won't stay limited to just CSAM. But let's be clear, there are tools to fight back if this law becomes an ugly reality. You can use Session, Briar, SimpleXChat, or Cwtch. Those are messengers built to resist scanning. And you can use Tor and I2P, anonymous decentralized browsing layers. And for anonymous serverless file sharing, you can use OnionShare. Links to all of these tools will be dropped below. Bottom line, Chat Control 2.0, built as a child protection measure, is really a surveillance weapon masquerading as a savior. If it passes, we've set a dangerous precedent. Encryption dies, privacy dies, dissident dies. So, here's the challenge. Will Europeans let democracy crumble, or will we fight back? The clock is ticking. October 14th can't come soon enough. But we can stop this. Not with silence, but with noise. With action, with resistance. Because once you lose your right to private conversations, you've lost a lot more than just privacy. Now, let's go even deeper into this so-called Chat Control 2.0, because this isn't just a story about mass surveillance. It's also a story about politics, power, and possible corruption. At the center of it all, Ylva Johansson, the EU Commissioner for Home Affairs. She's the one who drafted this law, who keeps selling it as a child protection measure. But here's the kicker. Johansson has been accused of cozying up to big tech lobbying groups and child protection NGOs. They just happen to stand to profit if this thing passes. One of those NGOs is Thorn, co-founded by actor Ashton Kutcher. Yeah, you heard it right. Hollywood has a stake in this European surveillance scheme as well. Thorn builds scanning tools that detect child abuse material. And if Chat Control 2.0 becomes a law, suddenly every tech company in Europe would need scanning software. And guess who's standing first in line to sell? Now, Cwtch and Thorn like to frame themselves as saviors, protecting kids, fighting the bad guys. And look, nobody denies the importance of child protection. But when there's billions of euros on the table. Noble causes can quickly turn into money-making machines. Imagine the goldmine if every message app in the EU was forced to run their software. And here, where the corruption smell really kicks in. Earlier this year, members of the European Parliament raised red flags about Johansson's ties to lobbying groups and her secretive meetings with foreign representatives. Meanwhile, critics across Europe, from privacy NGOs to UN officials, are saying the same thing. This isn't child protection. This is surveillance infrastructure disguised as morality. Once the scanners are in place, governments can flip the switch and expand their use. To terrorism, disinformation, political dissent, that's how power creeps. And let's not forget, the European Data Protection Supervisor, basically the EU's top privacy watchdog, already slammed this proposal as incompatible with fundamental rights. Even the Council's own legal service has warned it could break EU law. Yet Johansson keeps pushing. Why? Ask yourself, who benefits if this law passes? Spoiler, it's not you. So, let's connect the dots. A EU commissioner with ties to lobbyists, a Hollywood NGO co-founded by Ashton Kutcher, ready to cash in. A law that would turn Europe into the first continent with state-mandated spyware baked into every single phone. That's not protection, that's profit and power dressed up in kid gloves. If Chat Control 2.0 passes, we're looking at the end of digital privacy in Europe. Every message, every photo, every meme becomes subject to scanning. Not because you're guilty, but because everyone is treated as a suspect. It's a surveillance state in the making, backed by politicians, padded by corporations, and justified by celebrities. The EU wants you to believe this is about safety, but you need to ask, safe for who? Safe for the kids? Or safe for politicians, the tech giants, and the lobbyists who thrive on control? So, here's the truth. Ylva Johansson may be the face of Chat Control, but she's not the only player. Behind her, there's a whole network of lobbyists, corporations and NGOs licking their lips. And if Europeans don't wake up now, October 14th could mark the day privacy died and the profit won. So, the question is, are we going to sit back while our messages get weaponized, or are we going to push back and remind those so-called leaders that we still have a voice? Because once they build the tools of surveillance, they will never tear them down. History has a funny way of repeating itself, just with shinier tools. Right now, the EU is pushing Chat Control 2.0, and they want us to believe it's about protecting children. But let's not kid ourselves. This law is straight out of the playbook of history's worst surveillance regimes. Think about Stalin's Soviet Union. The man built a state where nobody trusted anyone. Neighbors, co-workers, even family members. People were encouraged to spy on each other, report on each other. And if you said the wrong thing, the knock on the door came at midnight. Fear was the control mechanism. Now fast forward to 2025. With Chat Control, they don't even need neighbors snitching. Your phone snitches for you. Every private word is scanned, flagged, and potentially reported. Not by human spies, but by an algorithm sitting in your device. Stalin would have loved this technology. Then there's the KGB, the Soviet secret police. Their entire existence was about monitoring, infiltrating, and controlling information. They tapped phones, opened letters, tracked dissidents, and yet, all of that took armies of officers, paper files, endless man-hours. Chat Control automates the KGB's dream. One law, one system, and suddenly, the EU doesn't need to knock on your door to read your letters, because they've already been reading them before you hit send. And if you want a closer comparison, let's talk about the East Germany's Stasi. They weren't just feared, they were everywhere. The Stasi built one of the most comprehensive surveillance states in history. They had files on millions of citizens, collected through wiretaps, informants, even bugs hidden in people's walls. The Stasi motto might as well have been, trust no one. Now, what Chat Control does is digitized that nightmare. Instead of wiretaps in your wall, it's scanners in your pocket, dude. Instead of informants filing paper reports, it's AI flagging your memes. And the most dangerous similarity, all these regimes, Stalin's USSR, the KGB, the Stasi, justified their surveillance in the name of protection. Protection of the state, protection of the people, protection from enemies. Sound familiar? Shared Control 2.0 is sold as a protection of children, but once you accept the idea that mass surveillance is okay for one reason, it never stops there. Stalin started with enemies of the revolution. The KGB expanded it to anyone questioning the system. The Stasi ended up spying on basically everyone, because once the machine is running, you can't turn it off. Make no mistake, chat control is not just some harmless law. It's the first brick in building a digital USSR, a European Stasi 2.0. The difference is, this time, they don't need millions of informants. They don't need officers listening to phone calls all day. Technology does it all automatically, at scale, in real time. That makes it even more powerful and even more dangerous than anything Stalin or the Stasi ever dreamed of. So, the question is, are Europeans about to repeat history, just with better gadgets? Or will we remember what happens when governments decide that privacy is a privilege instead of a right? Because history shows us one thing. Once surveillance is normalized, freedom doesn't die overnight. It dies bit by bit until one day you wake up and realize you're living in the digital USSR and your phone has become the new Stasi officer living in your pocket. And that, my friends, is exactly what Shared Control 2.0 is. The past repeating itself, only this time with algorithms and smartphones instead of informants and typewriters. This was Woke Fallout, the place where comfort zones is shared. I'm Alex, signing off. Stay bold, stay loud, and don't stop questioning.